Hi again, everybody. Welcome into UnAnchored Boston with Bob Lobel and Mike Lynch. And as always, we are brought to you by Cold Spring RV, your destination for all things camping and where? We're in New Hampshire, of course, and by the great George Gray, the big wheel, we call him, at George Gray's Lexington Toyota 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. Well, happy April, everyone. Finally, even though we're taping this on Tuesday, April 7th, I know it's snowing in many parts of our viewing areas. But we're thrilled once again. We're always thrilled to have the pride of Cambridge Latin, University of Massachusetts, many publications, and at present, still writing brilliantly, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, I call it, the great Steve Buckley. Take it away, Bob Lobel. It's all yours.
Well, Buck, it's great to see you, and looking forward to an exciting hour of conversation. Lynch is in Florida and has not seen one Red Sox regular season game so far, so I'd like you to try to explain to him what he's missed.
Did you see Apollo 13?
Yes, I did.
The movie. They're trying to invent a filter, a round filter that can go into a square filter in the lunar landing module, and nothing is working so far. And they've got a lot of stuff to fix, and not a lot of time to do it because it's early is a nice thing to say, but at some point, what's the old Yogi Berra line? It gets laid out early around here.
Yeah.
It's getting late, and it's at a point now where, I'm not saying they're going to be the 62 Mets and lose 100 and some odd games, but they're just not playing good baseball all the way across the board.
And the fans, Mike.
Yeah, I read that. I can actually almost hear it off the print.
Sell the team, which is a very unique chant. That's a new one on me.
Well, let me talk about that for a minute, because there are two ways to look at this. You could say that, well, John Henry and Tom Werner, that this ownership over the last X number of years has not invested heavily in the product. The term I like to use is we have not seen what I used to call ownership swagger, where they acted as owners like Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz did as players, and they made it abundantly clear that they were going to put the best team in the field they could, and that's lacking. Now, defenders of these guys would say, whoa, wait a minute, and this is what fans in other cities would say about Red Sox fans. You guys are complaining about this ownership group that has brought you 4 World Series championships after you didn't win one since 1918? What's wrong with you? The very simple answer is that two things could be true at once. It is absolutely true that this ownership came in and they renovated Fenway, they hired good people, they put winning teams in the field. And yes, they won the World Series in 04, 07, 13, and 18. But if you look at this team right now, go back to Ronald Reagan. I mean, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And I would say no.
Like, I tried to look up, what was their record after 10 games last year? Do you know?
I don't know. It wasn't as bad as this. I know in 11 it was really bad.
Yeah.
There have been different years. I think 96, Kevin Kennedy's last year, they got off to a really bad start. Then they picked it up.
But 4 times in franchise history, they started 2-8,
and they've not made the playoffs in any of them. That's the little fun fact that I know.
So when you say two things can be true at once, and you pointed out exactly that point, there is one thing missing, however, in the two things. There's one difference, and the difference is that there's no Larry Lucchino. That I don't think.
Yeah.
I think if Larry Lucchino were still here and still involved in this franchise, he would not have allowed this to happen.
And if it did happen, he would have voiced a disapproval. I can tell you that much. And no, that's a mathematical certainty. I can't disagree with that. Now, they did win a World Series after Larry got shown the door. So they did win the World Series in 2018. So there is that. But your larger point is correct. Larry was loud, demonstrative, and also really brilliant. And one of his chief talents was He recognized talent and went out and hired talent. If you look at that front office from top to bottom, there are still people. Adam Grossman, who's a very high-ranking official, was basically an intern for Larry back when he was let's see, Stanford. I hope I don't get that wrong. And when he was a kid, now he's a high-ranking official. Sam Kennedy came over from the Padres with Larry. Theo Epstein came over from the Padres with Larry. Charles Steinberg came over from the Orioles to the Padres to the Red Sox with Larry. And Larry put together a good group that knew how to run a Major League Baseball team. I'm not saying that Sam can't do that. I'm saying that ownership has clearly not put its 100% focus on this franchise right now. I don't think you can disagree with that.
No, you can't. They've had other issues. They've had other priorities. Liverpool, whatever.
Oh, the Penguins, who they're selling, but they bought an NHL team.
Right.
So,
Yeah, got a music hall now. We got there's more building going on than behind the left field wall. And
it is funny you should say that, because that was at opening day, and I usually walk just to get the steps in. Sometimes I'll walk to Copley after the game and take the T home. And I was walking down Van Ness Street, and as I'm walking down there, it's like I'm downtown or in the Back Bay or Newbury Street. There's that, there's traffic, there's buses, there's cabs, there's people walking around. And this was 3 hours after the game. It wasn't right after the game ended. And that used to be kind of like a dark, mysterious, path to nowhere. There was a cab company there and a boarded up building. And it was just, you wouldn't think that you were right behind Fenway Park. But now it's like quite the little urban oasis back there. So that's another indication of how ownership has spread its wings and invested in every possible way that you can invest in the team, except for the product on the field.
You said you were there opening day, Buck. It was a good example of that because Sander Bogarts came up to for his first at bat and got a rousing ovation, and that pretty much encapsulated for me the sentiments of every Red Sox fan that was born probably after 1990.
No, it's true. I mean, I like to think that the fans were cheering Bogarts on the strength of cheering Bogarts, because good guy, solid citizen, good ball player, played on World Series winning teams. I mean, there's a lot to like about Bogarts. I think you might be taking it a next step, that they were channeling their displeasure with ownership through Bogarts, but at the same time, I can't disagree with it, because I didn't poll every single player who stood up, every single fan who stood up and cheered. But it was, in point of fact, quite noticeable, to the degree that Alex Cora mentioned it in his post-game meeting with the reporters. I was there, and nobody asked him about that. He went from whatever the question was. I think it was hey, opening day, it's great. We all love opening day. And, oh, by the way, the ovation that Xander Bogaerts, and he says it was the best ovation of a returning player to Fenway he's seen. And he's probably right. I would say that Pedro, coming back in 05 with the Mets, or whenever he did, would be up there. Not every player who comes back to Fenway gets cheered. Roger Clemens got booed, Johnny Damon got booed, and so forth. And other players were not of that caliber. Like when David Hamilton came back last night with the Brewers, he did play for the Red Sox, but not to the degree that people would stand up and give him an ovation. So it was pretty cool.
Plus, it was the first time he'd made an appearance at Fenway Park since he left.
Yeah, I was back once before, but he was injured and he didn't play. So I think I'm pretty sure he was physically there, but he wasn't. But obviously, standing up at the plate and if you go back and watch that, it's really cool, because the catcher steps out from behind the plate and moves up the line a little bit. The umpire kind of walks away. It's kind of like when the umpire gets hit by a pitch in an unfortunate place. The catcher will go out to the mound and talk to the pitcher for a minute, so, just very discreetly giving the umpire a moment to collect himself. So when Bogarts came, I know we're going off topic here, but when Bogarts came up, both the umpire and the catcher reacted in a way that suggests they understood the importance of what was happening right there.
I saw that the catcher went into the to the other side of the left-hander's batter's box.
Yeah.
And the umpire sort of just pretended he was smoothing the dirt around.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty good moment, I thought. Sometimes there are these unscripted moments in Boston sports. They're not like the greatest moment of all time, but everybody, without saying a word, everybody connected on that exact same moment right there.
I don't want to interrupt your flow of what you were going to ask me, but it just
I'm done.
popped into my head. What was the greatest non-game related moment that you guys have covered? And I think all three of us talked about it with that story I did for The Athletic on you guys a couple of years back with the broken camera. I don't know if that was Dick Dunham or.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So I'm talking about the whole Patrice, not Patrice, but with Ray Bork with the sweater with Phil Esposito.
Yeah.
When I do one thing I wished I'd covered in all the years I've been in this business that I was up in Portland, Maine in those days. I was probably covering a high school basketball game or something. But if I could roll back the clock and be at one event, I every time that comes up, I wish I could have been there for that.
So that was your moment.
That's my moment. Yeah. I mean, in terms of games moments that I've been at, Yaz's final game where he runs around, that's probably number one back in 1983. But in terms of things I wished I'd been at, it was definitely the Ray Bork with the sweater.
Well, I think, we're getting off the track here, but Game 7 of the 19 Stanley Cup Finals when Zdeno Chara had a broken jaw.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they come out for the starting lineups, and the camera goes down, at left wing and at defense, and they just stopped on Chara. And it was one of those times with, we've all felt a building shake. That was one of those times.
Yeah, no, there's cool stuff like that. And we could talk about it all day. And I was at a Bruins game when John Havlicek died, and the Bruins put like a that night, the Bruins put like a 4-minute video montage of John Havlicek on that Jumbotron at center ice during the Bruins game. It was very well done by the people within the Bruins who do those things. Their in-game presentation department, if that's what it's called. And it was so well done. I wrote a story on it that the Bruins, not that the Celtics didn't react accordingly, because obviously they did, but the Bruins seized that moment and recognized the other tenant in the building's great player in doing that. And that's, I always noticed that kind of stuff.
So let's move on from the Red Sox to another hot topic that I think we all have strong feelings about, and that is one Gino Auriemma from the University of Connecticut. Everyone knows what happened. Everyone has different feelings. Chris Gasper wrote a nice story today in the Boston Globe. Buck, you ever had any dealings with Gino?
No, I haven't. I've not unaware of stuff that's happened over the years. Now, I can tell you, I was doing the big show with Glenn Ordway on EEI, must have been 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when he berated a female student reporter for the UConn newspaper. And that struck home with me because I wrote for the UMass Daily Collegian when I was a student at UMass, and the coaches treated me well. I remember I built a great relationship with the great Dick McPherson, and Jack Lehman was the basketball coach, and I knew those guys for the rest of their years. And of course, I was very fond of Jackie because he was from Cambridge, which was my hometown. He grew up in Columbia Terrace. I grew up on Prospect Street, two neighborhoods near each other, but I got treated great. And I remember thinking that he's berating a young reporter from the student newspaper in a way that I thought would have been highly unprofessional if that was somebody from the Herald of the Globe or the New York Times or the New York Post or any newspaper. And yet it was heightened by the fact that it was a student reporter. And I remember being on, and Tony Maz has mentioned this. I heard him mention it several days ago. He has the same memory. But I remember saying on EEI, like, God, if that was a member of my family, I think I might have driven up the stores and had a word with the coach. about that. I don't think that was fair, and it painted him in a very bad light. So that as a jumping off point to what's happened recently with him, I guess it shouldn't be surprising that he could lose his cool. And obviously he committed two sins. Number one was the whole episode in the first place. And number two, issuing a lukewarm apology in which he doesn't even mention Don Staley by name, was just that whoever guided him down that road did a bad job of handling him. If there was anybody helping him at all, in
I
fact.
don't think he's one of those people that you can handle.
Yeah, that's why I kind of corrected myself at the end there. Yes, I agree.
So, could they ever? Could they? Yes. Would they? No. Ever fire the guy?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think this rivals to the level of being fired. It was in poor taste. I heard or read somebody comparing it to Woody Hayes, and was it the
Yeah.
Independence Bowl
Yep.
when he well that was entering the field of play and like
The Liberty Bowl.
that was a Liberty Bowl.
Yeah. They played Clemson.
Yeah, I went to UMass, so we don't have good bowl knowledge. And I mean, it was a guy either returning an interception or a punt or something, and he went out in the field and pushed the guy, and that's a clearly
Charlie
yeah.
Bauman was his name. His
Yeah.
name was Charlie Bauman. He
He's
slugged
very-
him right into the chin strap.
yeah, that's a fireable offense, and I don't believe he ever. From that point on, I believe he was teaching military history for Ohio State, and that was the end of his coaching days. But no, I don't think. I'm no Geno fan, but I don't think this rises to that level. But that's just me.
You know, a couple things hit me instantly right away. First of all, and Don Staley can take care of himself. And in fact, I think in a fist fight, I might give it a 50-50 draw between the two of them. But he looked like he was going to go over and make physical contact with a woman.
Yeah,
He just don't do that. And he did. And I'm sure for 1 minute, Don Staley was saying, is he going to hit me? Is he going to chest bump me? Is he going to do something? And I felt it too. And he just wouldn't back down. It was awful. I think it was a low point, the lowest point so far of the Gino Auriemma era.
It's funny you should mention that because I didn't see it live. I got up the next morning like people do, and you have coffee and you're reading stuff. And this was it was in The Athletic, and it was one of the first things that popped up on my feed. And we have a columnist, a compatriot of mine named Jerry Brewer, who just began working for us. He came over from the Washington Post, and he was there and wrote a column on it. I instantly went to his column, which was very well done. And with it came the video. Now, I'm already aware of what happened. Obviously, if there had been a physical confrontation, that would have been the first thing I read in the morning. And that didn't happen. Now I'm watching the video, even armed with the knowledge that there was no physical confrontation. As he was moving toward her, I'm saying, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And then I quickly said, well, nothing's going to happen to that degree, or else I would already know about it. But it did strike that note, and it was very concerning. And the aforementioned Jerry Brewer had a line in his column that Don Staley, speaking afterward, the fact that she didn't back down and so forth, I think he put it as, she got Philly. In other words, she's from Philly, and Philly's kind of a tough town. Boston's a tough town. And to say that she got Philly kind of was a good line.
Yeah, it was a very good line.
I think if you had to ask anybody from the University of Connecticut, I think the firing point would be what kind of glory or harm did it do to the image of the University of Connecticut? So I'd have to check with Lee Montville on this, and or Elliot Titleman, and whether Jordan's Furniture.
Oh, did Elliot go to UConn?
Well, he must have, because
Lee Montville.
Well, I know he did the thing with the two teams, but I don't know that he went to UConn. But
maybe let's assume that he did or didn't. It doesn't matter. But would he put any furniture on betting whether Gino Auriemma would get fired or not?
There was one of the years they had, if the Red Sox win the World Series, your furniture's free. It happened in a year where I genuinely needed a specific piece of expensive. It was a dining room set, and I was thinking, well, you know what? I got to buy it anyway, so I might as
Yeah.
well buy it under that arrangement, and it wouldn't be a conflict of interest when it comes to consumerism. I'm just another guy with a credit card. Um, as it happened, I ended up not doing it because a friend of mine was selling his house and sold me his dining room set for next to nothing because he was moving out to the West Coast. But I was all prepared to drive up to is it Woburn or Peabody up on off of
Reading.
is it Reading? And I was all because it's right off 95.
See it on the highway, yeah.
Yeah, I was all set to drive up there and say, give me a fancy dining room set. The worst that could happen is that I would have gotten a dining room table I needed anyway. And, as it happened. So,
Well, they have.
Let me go back to I would fire him. I would fire Gino.
All right. I mean, it's not something. I'm certainly not going to dig my feet in it and take the Gino side on this because you've got a lot of ammo on your side. What I think I can I worked for the Hartford Courant for a couple of years. This was way back in the 80s, and I learned then that UConn basketball is very popular with the fan base. It's a very loyal fan base, and you listen to like Felger on the radio always talks about green teamers and that Celtics fans are more loyal to the product than perhaps fans of the Sox, Patriots, or Bruins. And we can argue the point, but if you take what his feelings are about Celtics fans and apply it to UConn, I think there's a match there because UConn fans are very, very loyal to the program. They were very loyal to Don Calhoun. And I think they're pretty loyal to Gino. Now, that may have changed. I haven't read the Connecticut media over the last couple of days. As a guy you should get on your part, Andrew Callahan, the football writer from the Herald. I don't know if you've had him on, but he's a UConn grad and a big UConn fan, so he might have some thoughts that are beyond.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, but I would fire Gino for losing the game. I wouldn't fire him for. I would fire him for he had an undefeated team in the biggest game of the year and he lost it. You're fired. I don't care how you acted against Don Staley. You're fired because you lost the game.
Yeah, and I don't know if this counts. And he lost to a team. Not that I'm in the weeds on roster building and women's basketball, but he did lose to a team that lost handily in the final. So,
correct.
So do with that what you will.
Just to give, I remember when Jim Calhoun took over the UConn job, there were 17 dailies that covered UConn basketball in Stores, Connecticut. I didn't know there were 17 dailies in the greater Connecticut area.
Oh yeah, no. There was the Meriden Record, the Hartford Courant, the New Haven Register, the Greenwich Time, the Stamford Advocate, because I lived there. I knew all those papers, and they were all really good papers too.
Let me ask you this: in this age of name, image, and likeness, players getting paid, is the athletic director and the president of the University of Connecticut, are they afraid what it might do to their financial coffers to be able to pay players, to attract players, that we have not heard a word from the athletic director or the university president?
Well, it's not an unfair question to ask because, not to name drop it, I was talking with your good friend and mine, Bob Ryan, texting with him the other day on the difficulty that, and Bob wrote a column last Sunday on this, and basically his message was, this isn't the college basketball that I covered and grew up and loved. And, his dad was an assistant AD at Villanova. So Bob, from the time he could walk, was a college basketball fan. And at the end of the day, he believes he's still capable of following the games in the tournament without getting caught up in all that. Now, the question is, can presidents do that? It's a different landscape. It's college basketball players being paid very good sums of money and can go anywhere they want. And this whole transfer portal, it's it sounds very quaint now to say this, but there used to be the freshmen would come in and play a little, and And you kind of think, boy, in a couple of years he might turn into something, and then that player would turn out to be a big star. I mentioned I went to UMass, and Jack Lehman goes down to New York and gets this Julius Irving kid, and back in those days, freshmen couldn't play varsity basketball, which is crazy when you think about it. That UMass had Julius Irving playing on the freshman basketball team. But if you talk to people who were around back then, they said, boy, just wait till next year. This Julius Irving kid is going to be something. Well, that doesn't really exist anymore, because that freshman player you have might be in the NBA next year, or you see him play at BC and the next year he's at Tennessee. And it's and I would hate to be the guy who has to, or the woman who has to put together a roster every year in college sports, because it's like you have to begin over every single year instead of fine tuning or pruning and oh, if I could just get a good point guard, I'll be all set next year. But that's a different world. That doesn't exist anymore.
Well, speaking of different landscapes, and I don't want to change the subject, but I'm going to, and I'll back to baseball and the ABS system. And I was talking about different landscapes in Major League Baseball. I mean, Major League Baseball has gone under dramatic changes in the last couple of years. And I'd be interested to know what you feel about this latest one, the ABS system, because I think it's fantastic, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, we have to begin at the base, which is that, and I know it paints me as a dinosaur. I wish instant replay, review plays in all sports would just go away, that it didn't exist. Now, it's not a cause I fight, because that battle and that war has been lost, but it's philosophical with me that in a world where everything is computers and social media and Google and all that, and I partake in all of that happily. I mean, I'm doing this on my iPad right now, and one of the great joys of my day every day is to get up and read all the papers on my iPad instead of going out to the front stoop. Having said that, it would be nice if we could sit back and put away our phones and our computers and watch flawed human beings, 10 guys in each team with the DH and 4 umpires, and just let them be human beings, and let's celebrate the humanity of it all, and recognize that an umpire missing a call is the exact same thing as a shortstop overthrowing the first baseman. That's the idyllic viewpoint that I have, that I can't listen. That horse is out of the barn. Having said that, if we're going to have instant replay, if we're going to have review calls, we should have it all the way. We shouldn't cherry pick on. There are certain plays we know they got it wrong, but that's not reviewable. Well, you either have it or you don't. And in that spirit, I'm okay with it. I don't like the fact that the umpires have been turned into laughing stocks. That's an unfortunate byproduct of this. I do believe that in a year or two, they're going to figure this out, and they're going to take away the plate umpire calling balls and strikes. He will have a thing in his ear that says ball or strike, and he will react accordingly. I think that's what's going to happen next.
I think you're right.
I do too. I mean, we've sort of had it, but unofficially, like the strike zone before we had this ABS system. So it's been around for a long, long time. The crazy thing, though, is that the manager is not involved in that. It's only the pitcher, the catcher, and the hitter, and touching so that the manager could be in the dugout going, "No, what are you doing? What are you doing?" Because every batter thinks the pitch was a ball, and every pitcher and catcher thinks the pitch was a strike, and that's just the way they are, the way they are built. And I think that's gonna cost a team a big game at some point down the line.
Well, no, it was early on. The Sox had used up the 2 challenges by the 3rd or 4th inning.
Yeah,
and then the ability to challenge a bad pitch later in the game has been removed from the equation. And see, that's gone, and they lost it because they made 2 faulty challenges that had nothing to do with Alex Cora, because you do not have enough time to turn to the dugout and see if Alex Cora wants you to challenge it, because Alex Cora is in no position. I mean, he's a savvy baseball mind. He played 12, 13 years in the big leagues. He's been coaching and managing forever. So he knows the strike zone, but the intricacy of like that 1/8 of an inch from the dugout, he can't judge that. Nor can he. Is there enough time for him to see it on the replay guys in the back room there?
Right.
That's where they get their challenges from. It's not Alex Cora. It's
Yeah.
the people in the back room, and you'll see he puts his hand up, he turns around, and he's waiting for a signal from his own crew. And if he does that, it means we're not challenging. If he does this, it means they are. There's not enough time for that. So you have to depend on your players. And I haven't audited every team in baseball, but I have a feeling this has been a problem with players throughout baseball that's been frustrating the managers because, it's great that they all had this system in the minors for 3 years, but it's clear. Roman Anthony, who had it in the minors, I mean, he made a challenge on a pitch that he thought was a ball. It turns out he was wrong. And you would think that Roman Anthony, having experienced this for a couple of years in the minors, would be kind of a savvy veteran, but in this case, he wasn't.
I'll tell you why I like it, and it's because it involves the fans in a much different way.
It does.
It does involve the fans, and I think in a very positive way. It gives them a chance, if you're watching on television at home, to decide whether they should challenge or not and be more involved. And I think in the ballpark, it gives them a risk reward type of reaction. And in that way, that's the reason primarily why I do like it.
We're also seeing a new kind of styling going on, whereas it used to be, the batter hits the home run, he does the bat flip, or he stands and he watches it. And that used to be forbidden back in the day, even though I always found out Reggie Jackson was doing that 50 years ago. But the fact is, it's commonplace now. But now what we're seeing, and Contreras did it the opening day, the home opener, where he took a pitch that was called a strike on ball 3, and he did that. And as soon as he challenged it, he dropped his bat and started walking to first base. Meaning,
I know.
and,
That was pretty. If only he had been called back.
Yeah, and I said, "Boy, you got to be really sure, because that's embarrassing if you're like
Only he had been called back."
Yeah, and it used to be if you, let's just say he did that on a check swing, and he was certain that the umpire, that the plate umpire would check with the base umpire and get the call the batter's way, and the batter was so certain that the base umpire would rule in his favor, he starts working at first. Well, I can guarantee you, if a batter had ever done that, the umpire would not go to the base umpire. He would just say, "Oh, screw you! You trying to show me up? No, it's a strike. You're out." And now you can't do that because you can't hurt the ego of the computer. It's not like the computer is like, "Oh, show me up where you know that's a strike." It doesn't work that way. So
now, just think if we had this years ago, we would have no more Billy Martin tantrums at home plate, no Earl Weavers, no Kai Yastrzemski covering up home plate with dirt. We would have missed all those great moments.
It's funny to say that. I actually wrote a column on that last week, and I covered the Yankees for a couple of years, and the last of Billy Martin, and we were in Oakland Memorial Day. And he got thrown out of the game and began throwing dirt on Dale Scott, the umpire. And afterwards, we go in to talk to the umpires, and Richie Garcia was the crew chief, and Richie would not let us talk to Dale Scott because Dale was a second or third year umpire. And so we're talking to Richie, and Richie yells, and you know how Richie was in those days. And so I called Dale Scott, who's now retired, and he's working for Netflix and MLB. He's like that umpire in the booth that they go to, and he's very good at it. And I called Dale, and I was explaining to him my recollections of that. And how do you know all this? How do you know that they wouldn't let me talk? And I said, because I was in the room. I was covering the Yankees for the Hartford Courant. But that was Billy. And it turned out to be his very last ejection because he got fired like a week or two later in Detroit, and that was in 1988. And then on Christmas Day, he was killed in the car crash out in Western New York. So he never managed again. And but you're right, it's Billy Martin, it's Lou Piniella, it's if you want to go really back in the day, Leo DeRocher, all those years he managed the Giants and the Cubs and so forth, Brooklyn Dodgers. And who else? Earl Weaver, famously. If you can go to YouTube, go to Earl Weaver ejection on YouTube. There's a famous
Bill Howell.
3-minute clip with Bill Haller,
Bill
exactly.
Howell.
And is it Tom Haller?
Bill Howell.
Yeah,
He was being wired for an evening magazine feature. It was supposed to be a nice, relationship between the umpire and the players interacting, and it turned into like, you're not going to the Hall of Fame. You're going to the Hall of Fame. You're going to buy a friggin' ticket.
Yeah. And he says, you touched me. I didn't touch you. You're full. And it's funny. I'm willing to guess that when it comes up as it is right now, the people who are watching this, when it's over, are going to Google that. I'm going to go to YouTube and find that.
It should.
It must spike every once in a while because somebody like me or you, Bob, will bring it up. And then, because I just mentioned it in the column last week. I said, there's this memorable thing. And we put a link to it, which we can do online. And so I said, there was this game with Earl Weaver, and it's hyperlinked in the blue. So the modern day reader is trained to just go to that and see it and then come back to read me, now having seen what I just talked about. So
you're going nowhere, Earl. Neither are you.
It's great stuff. And that just happens to be one that we know about because as Lynch pointed out, I always knew it was mic'd up. I was never sure why. Yeah. And so the fact that was caught on tape makes that a very famous manager-umpire confrontation. Now, we've seen those confrontations over and over and over with all the aforementioned. Can you imagine the stuff Leo DeRocha must have said to like Augie Donatelli in the 1960s or whatever? Or Lee Pellicudis, those umpires from back in the day. I wish we could hear some of the stuff Leo said.
No, you don't.
Good point.
All right, we're going to go camping for a minute, Buck. And you've been down this road before, and I don't know if you've done any more camping since, but we'll find out in a minute. Because right now, Cold Springs RV has some amazing savings for the new year for you. So take advantage of the great deals now, and they will take advantage of the opportunity to sell you what is going to be a dream motorhome or fifth wheeler or travel trailer, but something you'll never forget and will be so happy you went out and bought it. So go see the 2026 Winnebago Micro Minis in stock, and they have so much more. So get to Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire.
Where?
It's in Ware, New Hampshire. It's west of Goffstown on Route 114. And as a matter of fact, I was on Route 114 in Goffstown this last weekend. And it was, if I'd have gone a little further, I'd have gone to Ware. So it's north of Tingsboro, and where my friend Donald and Jackie live. And also out there, west of Goffstown and St. Anselm's College. Buck knows where that is.
Did you go by Milford, New Hampshire?
No, Ware, New Hampshire.
Oh, Ware, okay.
Yeah, Route 114 goes right through Goffstown, right through Manchester, and you take it from 114 and you go right out there. Cold Springs RV. So learn more at coldspringsrv.com. Well, Buck, you know the drill, but this is Lynch's question. So,
all right, Buck, I'm gonna stay current with what we were just talking about right now. You get a use of the Lynchy Lobie Cruiser for 7 days, drive across country. You got to have somebody riding shotgun with you, and this person has to be a current or former, alive or deceased, Major League Baseball manager.
I've been sitting on this because his name came up organically. I'm going to say Leo DeRocha. Leo DeRocha was from West Springfield, Mass, and Hall of Fame manager, great shortstop in his day.
Who was he married to, Buck?
Lorraine Day.
Attaboy. All right, good one.
And I actually talked to Leo in the early 90s when I was working for the National Sports Daily about doing a feature on him. And then he said, well, get back to me in a few months. And then the paper went out of business. And then Leo died, so I never got a chance to do the feast. But I was always, the legend of Leo was always on my mind about during the pandemic when no games were being played 6 years ago. we did a TV blitz for the Athletic, and they wanted us all to write sports figures who have worked in TV and the movies. And I did a big column on Leo DeRocher, who had an acting bug, and partly because he was married to Lorraine Day. But if you go back, he played himself in episodes of the Beverly Hillbillies, Mr. Ed, and the Munsters. And they were very funny
Not the
episodes.
talking horse, Mr. Ed.
Yeah, well, the talking horse, Mr. Ed, who shows up at Dodger Stadium swinging a bat against against Sandy Koufax, and that episode back in the early '90s, TV Guide did the top 100 funniest sitcom episodes ever, and that Mr. Ed episode made the top 99, and they're funny. I interviewed Max Baer, who played Jethro in the Beverly Hillbillies. I interviewed a guy
Junior, by the
Max
way,
Baer Jr. And I interviewed a guy named Bart Darfler, I think his name was. Bart, I forget his name, but he was an actor who played a sports writer in the Munsters episode. The only person living was Butch Patrick, who played the kid, Eddie Munster, and I couldn't find him. But it's a fun story. And Leo wrote an autobiography with the late great Ed Lynn from Dorchester, who I met later in life. And Leo was the most anecdotal storytelling. He was a scallywag. I mean, like, he was not well liked by baseball establishment. He famously cheated the whole Bobby Thompson thing in '51 with the New York Giants. They had like a buzzer system. They were stealing pitches, as was proven in a book by Joshua Prager called The Echoing Green that I read.
So you telling me Bobby Thompson knew what was coming?
Well, Bobby claimed until his dying day that some players didn't like it. They felt it confused them up at the plate. And Bobby claimed that he was not, that they told players we can ring the buzzer yes or no if you want. Some players said no, and that it was some players didn't want it. And Bobby claims he was one of those players. So do with that what you will. But Leo was someone whose story always interested me. I've written about him several times, and in accordance with exactly the way you played it, 7 days in a camp of living a dead manager, I would have loved spending that time with Leo DeRoche. He probably would have punched me out on day 3, but why not?
Would you have made it to the Mississippi River?
With Leo, probably not. Leo might have lost the camper in a card game during a stopover in Toledo. So
we don't have insurance for it yet.
he might have torched it, I mean, Leo was known to cut corners, so you never know.
Well, we have to get some insurance like Jordan's Furniture had for that. If UConn men and women make it to the championship game. Did you realize that there was $50 million in purchases were made, and most of them were from Connecticut? I didn't know that Jordan's had 3 or 4 stores in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, I mean, I would advise people to. I would never advise people to gamble. It's not my thing. But if they do this again next year, and you need a new couch or a new bed, or if you're going to buy it anyway, and I don't know Elliot or Barry, and
I did it one year. I bought mattresses for all the girls, and I had to get them anyway. And I didn't win, but one year they got wiped out. The Red Sox they won the World Series or something.
Well, maybe that's why Pino was so upset that he refurnished his house, and he was the one that lost the game. So
Lynch, I assume you went to one up in Reading. That's right up the road from you, right?
I did. Yes, I did. Yep.
Well, there's one in Natick too, Buck, and there's got to be one. There's one in near Avon.
Well, I've always wanted to go to the one in Avon, and this is going to turn into a Jordan's commercial, and I apologize, but every Christmas they do the old Jordan Marsh Enchanted Village, which the Enchanted Village in the downtown Jordan Marsh was a thing they used to set up every year, which as a child it was like magic, and and they've got it must be laughably quaint by today's standards. But they have possession of that, all the packaging for that, and they reassemble it every year at the Jordans down in Avon, and I've always wanted to get on and
Turned
see
into
it.
a commercial for them. So this,
Yeah.
you know,
So,
this is they got
but
away
I
scot free, and they're getting away scot free here today.
well, that's one of those things where it's. I always call it the Rex Trailer effect. Like you either know who Rex Trailer was or you don't, and you have to be here, be from here, and of a certain age. If you're not of a certain age and you're not from here, you have no idea. So I always call it the Rex Trailer thing. So,
Well, I mean,
and
that
it's
brings up my next.
Boomtown. Boom, Bob, boom, boom, Boomtown. That's what we call it.
exactly
Sergeant Billy.
Sergeant who is the Mexican Pablo.
Sergeant,
Pablo.
yeah.
No.
Yep.
Bob, I guess they didn't get Channel 4 in New Hampshire. Where were you from, Bob?
Ohio.
In
Oh,
Goffstown.
you're from Ohio. Yeah, you wouldn't know any
No,
of this.
they didn't get Boomtown in Ohio, but I did.
No. We all, Buck, we
I
came
did
this
work in the
close to
same
getting
building,
this
so
close.
I do have
Getting
some.
through an entire show without talking about Bob Lobel's home state, Ohio. This close.
I didn't bring it up. I did not bring it up.
I forgot you were from Ohio.
Did
What
I
town
bring
is
it up?
again? What town is it again?
Apple Creek.
Apple.
Here we
Did
go.
not bring
Here
it
we go.
up.
It sounds like a
What do you
made-up
mean,
town.
here we go. You brought it up. I didn't say anything.
Here we go.
Isn't Apple Creek? Is that the town in Bye Bye Birdie?
Yes.
It's like Sweet Apple, Ohio, or something.
Yes. It's you're very good, Buck. I haven't heard that one in like 25 years. Seriously.
Hey,
What is he talking? Yeah, I know what he's talking
This
about.
close, Buck. This close.
I'm sorry.
Lynchy, I did not
That's
bring
on me,
it
Mike.
up. I did not say anything. I didn't even mention Harvard. I came this close before I mentioned Harvard. Okay.
I didn't mention
see, now
Swamp.
you're in my
Didn't mention
position.
Swamp
No,
Scott.
now you're in my position. I didn't bring it up, but I brought Harvard up.
Well,
You brought up Apple Creek, Ohio, and now I'm on a roll.
Since
Okay.
Pandora's box has been ripped open, I was at Frank's Steakhouse last night, owned by George Ravanas.
Here we go.
Whose
right,
no-hitter was broken up by Mike Lynch in 1976.
we haven't gone a month without talking about that.
He had me, George Ravinas, Steve's friend, my friend. He played for BC. He could throw a baseball like 95 miles an hour, and it was one of the days like today in Massachusetts. You didn't even want to make contact with the ball because it was just the vibration. So,
but instead you decided to break up his no hitter because you just rose to the occasion because that's the kind of an athlete you were.
No, he threw
No, really, it was a cold, windy day. I had no business hitting a baseball, but damn it, he had a no-hitter going, and I was going to hit the baseball, and I did.
He hung a curveball.
Hero.
My foot was 6 feet outside the batter's box. I was stepping in the bucket. I didn't even want to make contact with it, and he hung a curveball.
My innate athletic ability enabled me to adjust.
And I hit a double. We lost the game, but I broke up the no-hitter.
My innate athletic ability enabled me to adjust to the pitch while I was standing in the bucket.
All right. I tell you what, I'm going to do a legitimate spot for our good friend George Gray. All right. And feel free to jump in anytime you guys want to.
Well, I have one more subject to bring up before we leave.
All right. If you're thinking about a new vehicle, go with Lobel and Lynchy, and a lot of other people go. Go see our good friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. Lobel and I have been customers for years, and I mean 20, 30 years. We got so many cars, I don't know what to do with them. We know that George Gray will treat you right. They're family-owned and operated dealership that we trust, and you can trust as well. Go see the great George Gray, the big wheel we call him, at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. George will be standing out front. He has been since the Battle of Lexington and Concord over 250 years ago. And so if you need a car, he might even have a horse and buggy for you if you need it. But George will be there on the birth road of American Liberty, Massachusetts Avenue, Bob.
There you go.
And
I know it well.
Which goes right through your hometown. The entire length of that Mass Ave goes through Cambridge.
From the Mass Ave
Going
Bridge
through Pennsylvania, you'll go out to Ohio and probably get through Apple Creek. Tiger Woods.
Oh, boy.
Subject.
Okay.
Well, I'm bringing up the name. You can fill in the blanks.
If I had his money, I hire a driver. That's probably the best way to approach this.
Yeah, that's I don't know what to say. I don't think he did himself any favors when he's walking around telling the cop, "Yeah, I was just talking to the president. And do what you have to do." And
Yeah, I'm not sure what that solves. You have to have enough wisdom to understand that's going to be mocked
Yeah.
once that's released, as it has been. And it's not like a police officer is going to say, "Oh, why didn't you say so? Be on your way, sir. Have a nice day." So it was, I like to think he panicked and said, "Oh, this is the best I can come up with." But I still go back to what I said. I just, people with that kind of money, and I don't have that kind of money. I don't live that life, and to the degree that he and his compatriots do. But you've heard it a million times. And by the way, almost 99.9% of professional athletes who go out, and I know this to be true just from talking to teams, so they do, in point of fact, make arrangements to get rides back, to not so much for safety, but for repercussions. I mean, the two go hand in hand. I'm not saying that they are blind to the safety concerns, but if you make that kind of money and you've got that kind of notoriety, if you get into an accident like that and you're famous to the degree that Tiger Woods is at the very, very top. He's up there with Magic and Larry and, the superstars of the last 50 years.
There was Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali. I mean, just whoever you want to choose. Tiger was, when he burst upon the scene as a young golfer, was transcendent, and he turned. It's almost cliche to say it now, but he took a lot of kids of color and turned them on to golf, and a whole lot more people. I think the three of us are going to watch the Masters anyway, but a whole lot more people watched it for years and became attracted to golf because of Tiger Woods, because he was transcendent in that way. So yes, when he gets in an accident like this and does it again and a third time, it's going to be big news. He should have a driver, and that's so easy for me to say because I don't live in that world.
Well, Bob, maybe we can let him use the Lobel Lynchy cruiser when it's built. And what do you think? 7 days?
I think for as long as he wants it.
Leo DeRocha lost it in a card game. It's gone.
That's pretty
All
good.
Good job. Good job. This was really not only entertaining but informational.
Oh, thank you.
And tell the team. You tell me where that chant came from.
What chant?
Sell the team.
Oh, is there I don't know. Is there historical background?
No, I don't know. It came from the mines of Fenway Park.
Oh, I'm going to guess that at some point in time in other markets that it's been,